All right, geometry 2-4, transformations in a plane. All right, we're gonna switch gears a little. Yesterday's assignment took a long time. Today's and tomorrow's assignment aren't gonna take nearly as long, okay? With transformations, you're dealing with coordinate planes and you're dealing with dots, lines, figures, and they are moving systematically along your plane. So we have rules we follow for this. So what we're going to start with is reflection, and we only reflect to start with over your axis lines. That's how we learn. And then we will move on, and then we'll reflect over different lines. But we have very specific rules when we reflect over the x-axis and then when we reflect over the y-axis. And when you hear reflection, I asked in class and everyone says that makes you think of a mirror. So it's literally a mirror image of your original image. So your original image, okay, that's called your pre-image. All right, and that is the original. And then we call the image, right? And that's the ending, okay? That is after your transformation. Where did the image end up? All right? I call it its burial place because, and you'll see why here in a minute. When you, when we move it, we make a special notation for our letters, make them called prime, and it looks like a tombstone for our letters. So I call it the burial place. All right, let's learn our rules first. All right, so we're going to reflect. When you reflect over the x-axis, you follow this rule here, okay? So you start out with a point, x, y. You transform it in some way. In this case, we're reflecting over the x-axis. Your x and y stay the same, and you change the sign of the y. That's not telling you that your y's are all going to be negative. That just means change sign. All right? So that's all. When we talk about these coordinate rules, that is what the negative in the rules mean. It just means we're going to change the sign of the y. And you can see that here. So this point A was one dot above the x-axis, and when you reflect it, it becomes one dot below the x-axis, and the only coordinate thing that changed was the sign of your y. Now I'm going to reflect over the y-axis. All right, reflect over the y-axis. Your rule changes slightly. We are going to change the sign in front of the x. And you can see that here with A again. So with A, it is 2 to the right of the y-axis, being positive. And then A prime is 2 to the left of the y-axis. So the biggest mistake I see students make is reflecting over the wrong axis line. So I always highlight, I draw over the axis line. It tells me that I'm reflecting over. So for this one, I reflect over my x-axis. When I'm given a picture, you aren't always given a picture. But when I am given a picture, I highlight. So when I reflect over my y-axis, again, I highlight the axis line when I am giving a picture, so I make sure I reflect over the correct axis line. What we're going to focus on is the mathematical side of it, okay, following our rule. Knowing these rules is the most important part, so that when it comes time for the test, it gives you some fluency and it makes you quicker on the test for these things. All right, so triangle ABC has these coordinates. This is the pre-image. And it says determine the coordinates of the vertices. All right, those are the points of the image after it reflects over the x-axis. Okay, I'm reflecting over the x-axis. What's my rule? my rule, when I reflect over the x-axis, okay, I have my starting point, and when I transform it, my x, and then I change my sign in front of my y. All right, so let's do that. So we're going to change our a prime is 3, change the sign in front of that y. We read this a prime, but it reminds me of giving, you're burying it because that's its final place, and it's its little tombstone, or hat, if you will. So b prime, let me see, I keep x just as is, and I change the sign of the y. So it started negative. When I change my sign, it becomes positive. Then I have c prime, 4, 5. Oh, triangle. I'm done. All right. Next up, it wants me to reflect over the y-axis. Okay, I'm reflecting over the y-axis. I'm going looking, reflecting over the y-axis. What's my rule? All right, x, y. We make the change, and what changes is the sign in front of my x. Okay, so now your image, a prime, would be -3, 2. B prime would be -2, -2. And C prime would be -4, -5. All right, so, oh, can't see that. So sorry. There we go. So, and that is our triangle when we reflect it over the y-axis mathematically. What changes is the sign in front of our x. All right? So, remember, we write the summary after taking the full set of notes, sleeping on them, giving it some time, giving it some thought, and what's the most important part of these notes, you know, what stood out to you, what did you learn. Just a nice solid sentence. All right, let's go on the back. So that's reflection, okay? 2 rules. Reflect over the x, reflect over the y. 2 rules. All right, so next on the back is translation, all right? Translation is basically, it's a slide. It's a slide and a movement along the coordinates grid, okay? Now this has something, there's a new term, okay? There's a new term, and it is called a vector, okay? A vector. When you have a translation, you get a vector. And that's basically just telling you how to move the points, okay? How are you going to move that point? So with your vector, it kind of looks like your greater and less than signs got hungry and decided to eat a couple letters. But your A, this tells you how your X is moving, and the B is telling you how your Y is moving. So if it is positive, you will add, and the points will go to the right. If it is negative, you will subtract, and your points will go to the left. B tells you your Y. So after you move, either right or left, then your points will go up if it's positive, or down if it's negative. Okay, so the sign of your vector is going to give you the direction that you're going to move in. And you get another rule. Here's your rule. So when you translate, your X changes by its vector, A, and B changes by the B part of the vector. So let's see. We are going to translate P. All right, so here's your example. You translate P, your vector is 7, 4. So you add 7 to the -2, and then you add 4 to the 3, giving you your new point. So let's practice that. All right. So I have got a quadrilateral, which just means I have four points. Okay, find the coordinates of the vertices, which are just the points. Translation, okay, so if I have a translation, that means I'm going to have a vector. All right, and these are positive as well. Cool. All right, so My Q. Where is my Q's final resting place gonna be? Where's it gonna end up? Well, I have got minus 8 plus 7, and then I've got minus 2 plus 1. Okay, we'll come back and do the math here in a minute. We're going to get all these written down. R. Where is R's final resting place? We have minus 9 plus 7, and we have minus 5 plus 1. Okay, we're adding the same vector to each point's origination. So you have S prime. All right, minus 4. Ooh. All right, minus 4 plus 7. And then minus 7 plus 1. Finally, T. Where is T going to end up? Minus 4 plus 7, minus 2 plus 1. All right, let's check it out. So minus 8 plus 7, well, that's minus 1. Minus 2 plus 1, and that's also minus 1. So those are the coordinates of Q's final resting place. Minus 9 plus minus 2, minus 4. All right, 3, minus 6, 3, minus 1. All right. So you have an assignment out there. So when you have to reflect, all right, write your rule, depending on where you're reflecting over, okay? So when you see the word reflect, you're going to then continue on reading to see if you're reflecting over the x or the y-axis. Write your rule, all right? Write your rule. And then where they end up. When you are translating, you have a vector, all right? You only have a vector when you translate. Okay, so if I see the word translation, I'm going to look for the vector, and then I'm going to show my math of each point or each vertice and how it moves and where it ends up. Good luck.